Leo's legs shook. His muscles felt like frayed ropes, burning with a deep, trembling fatigue. He had been at this for an hour, maybe more. Time had lost its meaning inside the four walls of the gym, replaced by the brutal rhythm of failure. One more attempt. One more failure. The heavy barbell lay across his shoulders, a crushing weight he could no longer lift. For weeks, this single repetition, this final lift to stand up from a full squat, had been his white whale, and for weeks it had defeated him. He had tried everything. More protein. More sleep. Visualizing success. He had filmed his form, analyzed every angle, and made tiny adjustments. Nothing worked. The barbell, loaded with a weight that felt impossible, would simply pin him at the bottom of the movement. Each failure was a small death of confidence. And now, on this final attempt of the day, his body had nothing left to give. His mind was screaming a single, clear command: "Stop! Just put it down! You're done!" This was the moment. The air was thick, with the smell of chalk and sweat. His vision swam with exhaustion. The urge to surrender was a physical pull, a gravitational force begging him to collapse onto the safety bars. But as he hovered there, trapped at the very bottom of the squat, a strange quiet settled over him. The screaming in his mind faded to a whisper. The thought arrived not as a shout of determination, but as a simple, almost gentle question. What if I don't try to conquer it? What if I just complete the movement? It wasn't about winning anymore. It was about finishing with grace. The goal shifted from a desperate need for victory to a quiet intention for proper form. He released the resistance. He stopped fighting the weight and started accepting the motion. With that release, something fundamental changed inside him. The focus wasn't on the heavy iron across his back, or the burning in his quads, or the imagined judgment of anyone watching. His attention turned inward, to the subtle mechanics of his own body. He felt the solid connection of his feet to the floor. He noticed the alignment of his knees over his toes. He became aware of the deep core tension that had to support the spine. He didn't push harder. That was the critical difference. All the previous attempts were battles, a frantic application of brute force against an immovable object. This time, he simply began to move. He initiated the ascent not with an explosive jerk, but with a steady, deliberate pressure from his heels. The weight began to travel upward. There was no struggle, only motion. His body knew what to do. It had done this movement 1,000 times, with lighter weights. The knowledge was there, embedded in muscle memory, but it had been blocked by the frantic interference of his mind, the fear of failure, the anticipation of pain, the desperate need for a specific result. As he rose, the movement felt fluid, almost easy. The barrier he had been slamming against for weeks simply wasn't there. It had never been a physical wall of strength. It was a mental barrier built from fear. The pressure of expectation had created a tension that sabotaged his own ability. By letting go of the need to succeed, he had removed the tension. He had stopped fighting the weight and started working with it. The barbell continued its smooth path upward. There was no grinding halt, no desperate gasp for air. It was just a clean, technical lift. He reached the top, his knees locked, his chest high. He stood fully upright, the weight secure and steady. The breakthrough wasn't an explosion of power. It was a quiet click, a seamless alignment of intention and action. He had finally gotten out of his own way. He re-racked the barbell, and the clang of the metal was not a sound of triumph, but of completion. The victory wasn't in the lift itself, but in the profound shift that made the lift possible. He had discovered that his greatest obstacle was his own effort. He stepped back from the rack, his body humming with a new kind of energy, not the frantic buzz of adrenaline, but a deep, steady vibration of understanding. He looked at the barbell, no longer seeing a monster to be conquered, but just a tool. Why had it been impossible before? The answer was clear now. The wall was never the weight. The wall was his relationship to the weight. Every previous attempt was fueled by a kind of desperate force. He would approach the bar with a clenched jaw and a mind full of commands. Lift it! Don't fail! Push! This internal shouting created a cascade of physical tension. His shoulders would tighten, his breath would shorten, his movements would become jerky and inefficient. He was trying to make his body do something, to force an outcome through sheer will. But the body doesn't respond well to force. It responds to clear instruction and fluid execution. His frantic effort was like trying to drive a car by stomping on the gas and the brake at the same time. He saw the crucial distinction now, the difference between effort and force. Effort is the focused application of energy toward a goal. Force is the chaotic, tense struggle born from fear. Discipline is showing up consistently and practicing the movement. Desperation is needing every single repetition to be a validation of your worth. He had been operating from desperation, not discipline. The lesson was profound in its simplicity. Some obstacles are only overcome when you stop fighting them. The moment he surrendered the struggle, not the goal, but the struggle, was the moment the path became clear. He had to let his body do what it knew how to do without his mind screaming instructions and warnings. The barrier vanished because it was never made of iron. It was made of anticipation and fear. By accepting the possibility of failure and choosing to move with precision anyway, he had dissolved the barrier entirely. The obstacle was an illusion, a shadow cast by his own resistance. True strength, he realized, wasn't about overpowering the challenge. It was about understanding the challenge so completely that you could move through it, not against it. Leo didn't celebrate. He simply stood there, breathing deeply, feeling the quiet hum of his muscles. The victory wasn't in the number on the bar, but in the new understanding that now pulsed through him. He had discovered a rhythm. Not the frantic, desperate rhythm of trying to force an outcome, but the steady, patient rhythm of showing up and doing the work without attaching his self-worth to the result. From that day forward, his approach to every challenge changed. He carried the memory of that final, unforced repetition like a quiet secret. When faced with a difficult task at work or a personal goal that seemed daunting, he remembered the barbell. He learned to recognize the early signs of that frantic, forceful energy, the tension, the shortness of breath, the fear of failure, and instead of pushing harder, he would pause. He would release the resistance. He would focus on the quality of the action, not the weight of the expectation. The frantic need to prove himself was replaced by a quiet confidence that came from knowing how to move through difficulty, not just battle against it. Leo walked out of the gym that day feeling lighter than when he had entered, despite the physical exhaustion. He had not just strengthened his body, he had transformed his relationship with effort itself. The power was never in the final heroic push. It was hidden in the quiet moment just before giving up, and the simple choice to try once more, but differently. If you find yourself at that same breaking point, straining against an immovable weight, I encourage you to notice it, recognize the tension, and then consider the possibility of release. Try that last repetition not for victory, but for form. The breakthrough you're searching for might be waiting on the other side of surrender.